Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Wattier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, Dr. Scott Wattier here, and welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. I am here, as always, with my good friend and colleague, Tommy Welling. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you?
Remind me of what episode we're on, and I'll be doing a lot better. I can't remember.
Oh, man. You would put me on the spot here. I think it's episode
13?
13.
Is that correct?
13.
Wow, man. Time is flying while we spend more time in our homes than we've ever done before.
Yeah, it's an interesting time out there, but we're getting some cool stuff done, and we're hearing a lot of positivity out there amongst the static and the noise too. So there's lots of silver linings out there.
Unreal. Yeah, it's interesting because you've got your outside circles that kind of reach out to you, and I've got a couple people that live out in Cali, a couple good friends from high school, and they're like, "Hey, did you binge Ozark?" I'm like, "Nope." Haven't even turned it on yet. We've been so busy.
Yeah.
Just with my wife's practice and what we're building out here and the other clinics I work with. And it's like, I'm still really busy. So it's interesting. We're going to talk about a little bit about that this week, but to recap from last week, if you guys hadn't listened, go back and listen. It was a different episode. Last couple have had a little different kind of kick to them. But we're really focusing on trying to put the control and the simplification, back into your hands through this time, and also take others along with you. When people see you acting a certain way, i.e. the toilet paper situation, things tend to get out of hand. Monkey see, monkey do. Like, why is this happening? Like, why am I doing this? So, you can lead others through this time. There's a lot more, and some people that, sadly enough, aren't working right now, or they're working from home. You have more time to do things. So, recap, keep your routine, simplify, find the positive, create a new habit. I'll talk about a new habit that I started today. Hopefully going to do for the next 14 days, and just a really cool feedback, like you said. So,
yeah, we're hearing some stories of people becoming the pillar in their community. They're doing small things. You have some people who are still able to work and they're giving back. They're putting together fundraisers, giving food vouchers to some of the service industry who aren't working as much right now. I've been seeing just some really cool stories, people posting on social media and then within some of our circles. So it's been cool. Like you said, that stability, that simplicity, control, it's contagious. People see your calm and they say, wait, that looks better than most of the input that I'm getting, which is the complete opposite. Maybe I'll try that on for a change. That looks nice.
Right. And it's cool to see all that stuff. I know there's, some neighbors around here that people are helping out, and people are, going shopping for the older folk, and really, it's just really cool. And there's a C.S. Lewis quote that's floating around that's super powerful. All you got to do is Google C.S. Lewis and I'm sure it'll pop up. But just interesting times, but, a lot of positive things. And it's actually given me some time to really kind of refocus on, reprioritizing what's important. And you and I have talked a little bit about this, and I didn't expect this to come up. So just full transparency, a little look behind the curtain here. I lost all that weight really quickly with your guidance last summer. And then I've kind of just been hanging out. I lost all the weight. I pulled back. I was like, okay, kind of lost a little bit too fast. And some of you people might be like, well, look at this guy. He lost all the weight fast. Must be nice. I'm like, well, no, I put a lot of time and effort and work and research, and, you guided me through the process, but I got aggressive, and I was like, I want to do this as fast as I can, and got just shy of 50 pounds. Right. Well, since then, especially, up until, which is interesting, up until, the changes we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I was just kind of floating, and but just in the last couple of days has my motivation to really push back down to that ideal body composition and then stay on maintenance. So I'm kind of like in this weird in between,
Mm-hmm.
but these changes have actually allowed me to kind of get my footing back, interestingly enough.
Yeah, that is interesting. Where do you think that shift kind of came from? Where did the acceleration happen?
I don't know if I have an answer to that yet. Um, it it could be, I was thinking about that today because we had our pre-show call earlier today, and I was thinking about, one of the stats that one of the cool examples, just of an interesting example of the way time has been compressed down compared to the types of foods that we've been eating. So we'll talk about that later. But when we were going over that, I'm like, yeah, I just really feel this urge to kind of put my foot on the gas again. And I think it may be related to the fact that we're getting some amazing traction with fasting for life and just putting a ton of extra work in and
Mm-hmm.
just seeing great testimonials and feedback. And it's just awesome, the momentum. So, and I don't know, maybe it's the perspective shift where I'm getting to spend more time with the family, even though I'm busy as heck and I'm up earlier and staying up later and working more than ever on the
Mm-hmm.
projects and whatnot. But it's kind of allowed me to like refocus, like we were talking about last week, on what are the things you can control, and ultimately what's your plan and what are your goals. So I'm like, I hear all these people around me, not all, but I hear a lot of external inputs around me saying, well, how long is this going to last? What are we going to do? And I'm like, well, you do what you can and you control what you can and you plan the best you can. Um, and some of them are more funny where it's like, yeah, I started this new workout program because now I have, that quintessential air quotes, I have time to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. I got the
Oh
time. I
yeah, I
finally
get
have
the
it.
time. Right. Okay, great. But by day 3, they're pouring the ice cream into the pasta, right? Like they're like completely off. And you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to binge Netflix, stay up all night and eat everything. Like,
All
I'm like,
right.
no, 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 no. Like I operate outside of the status quo. Like I don't like to fit into the box. My
Mm-hmm.
mind has always been, look at my profession, the choices I've made, the way I've, deciding to do this project with you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
With
okay, no, no,
me,
no, let's do something different. No, I didn't mean it that way.
that is weird.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is weird now that you mention it. Freudian slip there, but so and if that's not the right term because you have the psychology degree and I do not hold me accountable. So I just think it was all those little things kind of together that made me be like, you know what? No, it's time to spread this message. It's time to, you can't give what you don't have, and the more congruency you have in your own life and the more action you take, like fourth dimensional stuff, man, Francis Cho, like craziness, like you put it out there, whatever you believe, it comes back. So
Mm-hmm.
like right now, I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna push through and get to my end goal, right? My end game,
Okay.
right?
Your number on the scale that you're looking for.
Or my body composition,
Okay.
ideally, but yeah, hit that number first. Um, okay, well, when should I start that? Well, I should probably be accelerating towards it and not just maintaining. So I don't know, man. That's kind of my
Sure.
perspective on the fly. I'm sure you
Yeah.
just picked a few things up there that you're gonna.
Well, no, it was interesting because back in February when we did our challenge, that was our first challenge. Um, we talked about that. We had a module on psychology, on self-image, and how self-image changes, and how it's its own kind of beast to be managed and for expectations to be set. Self-image psychology, if you've never really looked into it, was kind of born from a plastic surgeon back in the 40s, 50s. It was way back by now, 60, 70 years ago now, and he was he was noticing that his plastic surgery patients were feeling the same as they did before they actually had major reconstructive surgery, and he was like, what is going on? I have to understand this process here. We're making major changes and these people aren't feeling any different. So we started to go into the challenge and talking about what can happen, because if you have major weight to lose, we're not talking about 10, 15 pounds here, you might be talking about 50 or 100 or 200 pounds. And we might be talking about 10, 15, 20 years of insulin and blood pressure medications and just, a medicine cabinet full of medications and supplements. And all of a sudden to not need all of that stuff because your body composition is all of a sudden where it needs to be because you figured out the key, and you were able to get there. Well, that can feel like a void. It can feel very different from not that long ago. It can take some time to adjust. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you're saying, getting into kind of a second major leg of your journey here. And it's not all that surprising that you'll need some time to kind of recalibrate and maybe get that momentum back and be able to accelerate to the next step and to the, ultimately to the finish line that you want to see.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I was just on the couch there for a second, and I appreciate that. Yeah, that's interesting because I believe that's exactly what happened, and now I'm coming out of it. And what's done it? Well, shelter in place, and hearing
Mm-hmm.
people saying I'm pouring the ice cream on the spaghetti. Like I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. It's not going to happen. Like now is a better time than ever to come out stronger on the other side. When there's a weak market, there's a lot of smart people out there that make a ton of money in a market that's crashed. There's opportunity there. They
Mm-hmm.
seize the opportunity and they come out stronger on the other side. So we talked a lot about this last episode, but I think it was a realization just today where I'm like, no, it's time to push down to that bottom number, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and really reassess at that point. But it was definitely an adjustment period there. So I think that was a really cool perspective.
Hmm.
Crazy how that stuff just kind of happens on the fly too. Like we start talking and
Yeah.
these
I mean,
realizations.
it's a process, and if you've never been more than 15 pounds above your ideal weight, it may sound like Greek, but if you've been up and down a significant amount, or you've made some major changes, especially if they came relatively quickly, then you've probably had a sense of what we're talking about right now.
That's good perspective too. Cause yeah, we've helped, I can think of a handful of people right now, not even like having to try to think of a list of people that just wanted to get that last 15 pounds off or
Mm.
get back down to their weight they were when they got married or, fit into that wedding dress at the 25-year anniversary, like that kind of thing. But, for me, it was spiraling to the point where, I was 60 pounds overweight with
Hmm.
severe metabolic dysfunction, high blood pressure, 900 level triglycerides. And I wasn't eating McDonald's and pizza. I was working out 6 days a week and tracking my calories. And I know there's people out there be like, no, it's impossible. You must have been weighing your food wrong. I'm like, no, like I know enough about this stuff where, stress was a huge part, lack of sleep was a huge part, but I wasn't getting the results. So that's good perspective. You might be listening to this being like, yeah, I don't get it. But the same mindset or concept applies in all of those situations, which is what can you control now? What's your plan? And then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about shelter in place being that kind of impetus that you needed to take the next step in your own personal journey. Because when we start talking about like I finally have this window of time, like I've had that in the past, and I was never able to just leverage that into some miraculous self-discipline. Like I didn't create my own boot camp in my apartment living room like I would have wanted to. Like
Right.
all of a sudden I'm not working, or here we are in a quarantine. I wasn't just able to just take that time and just focus it on something that I was in control of like that. Um, but since coming on this journey and figuring out how to use fasting, it comes more naturally. I'm not feeling like I have to create this boot camp situation around myself to get some sort of results. I'm not worried about what I'm going to eat, and I've been doing one meal a day. I mean, I'm at home more, or I'm working different hours and things like that. But there's so much more control and simplicity in it that those things it's not tempting to pour the ice cream on the pasta like you've mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know where I picked that up, man. I think it was some meme or something. It was hilarious though. So, you know, I don't know how many minutes we're in right now, but it's a considerable amount. We just said the word fasting, other than when I said the intro, which was welcome to Fasting for Life.
Yeah,
So
we talk about fasting here.
yeah, we do. This actually is a podcast about fasting. So you just touched on one meal a day, but you also had a funny story about, you know, um, buckets and fridges and whatnot. That I
Yeah,
want.
I got a text earlier and from a buddy of mine, and I didn't really have a good pulse on this, but apparently people are getting bored out there, and they're thinking like what you're talking about, where they say, okay, I'm really gonna get it together. Okay, I'm on the protein bars, and I'm making my shakes, I'm making my green smoothies, and I got a plan, But then by day 3, they're posting pictures on the fridge because they got to remind themselves, hey, you're not hungry, you're just bored. Like, shut the fridge, back off here, But at the same time, we're in a mentality that we're talking about hoarding food and toilet paper, like you mentioned, and buckets of survival food and things like that. It's like that's a different mindset altogether. That's tough to feel zen and in control when all you're seeing around you is, can I get one of these survival buckets? No, they're all sold out. Okay, well, now I got something to worry about. I don't know.
No, that's interesting. I was actually, we haven't been doing much, socially. We used to, my daughter goes on coffee dates with my wife, and I take her on errands, and we go to Lowe's or Home Depot, and we ride the buses, aka the tractors, and we race. And we haven't really been doing any of that.
Yeah.
But I did stop, after dropping her off this morning at my aunt's house, and I went by Costco, and they're out there spraying down like the handles of the
Oh man.
carts. So I
Yep.
use my shirt and I walk through and I get my stuff, and like it was eerie, man. It's different. Like, people are acting very differently right now. Like, yeah, they might be at home bored, reminding themselves to I think you left the word out, shut the fridge.
Yeah. Shut the
But
fridge
then the
door.
other side is, yeah, like, people are nervous and they're worried. But, I made a post on Facebook a few weeks back that was like, everybody's out here worried about food. Like, most of us have a few months of food just sitting in our midsections. And my buddy
Right.
messaged me back. He's like, nah, man, 48, still got a 6-pack. I'm like, that's good. You're not at 4%. You still got a few weeks. It's okay. Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you look at the food, and that's the main thing we want to talk about tonight with, the focus on fasting and what you can do, to change the mindset. So when we look at the 4 tenets, it's it's mindset, motivation, method, and mastery. So you have to have the right mindset about fasting. You can't think it's starvation, or you got to get the cobwebs out about what it truly is for you. Like, okay, what's your mindset? What's your goal? What's your why? What's the motivation behind it? It's not just to lose weight, because if everybody had truly had the motivation to lose weight, we wouldn't have almost a 40% obesity rate.
Right.
It's crazy. And then you have the method, which is, what type of fasting works for you in your schedule. And then there's the mastery of it, which is when you start to figure out, the signals from your body and what you can control and what you can't, and breaking some of those old habits and whatnot. So when we look at the food choices we can make now, you actually have a limited choice when you go. It's different. Like, you go and you always get this same item, and then all of a sudden you reach for it and it's like, huh, it's not
Mm-hmm.
there anymore. So it's just a different time to get a different perspective, which I'm appreciating.
Yeah. I think everyone's having to make some choices, make some priorities. You walk in, okay, well, just the other day, my wife was looking for eggplant. She had to go to 3 different stores to pick up an eggplant
Wow.
because she said, well, should I just skip it? I said, well, no, you love eggplant and you haven't made it, in a long time. I don't remember the last time you made it. I'm not a fan of it. But I encouraged her to see if it was out there. So she ended up getting one. Um, but she had to prioritize, like, is it worth it to go around to try to find this? And then, you're looking for, breakfast sausage, and you end up with, chicken apple sausage instead of your normal pork or turkey or whatever it is. So,
Right, right.
you're expanding the taste buds a little bit. So, that's a good thing.
One of the good things is though is the aisles that are pretty empty are the ones we never go to. And I don't say that to sound snooty, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to food, some of the biggest questions that we get, and some of our other people out there that teach fasting, and people I know in the arena, and they well respected, great clinics, practitioners, providers, one of the big things I always see is it turns into a recipe or a diet book, or how to meal plan. And that's not something that you and I shouldn't say care about, but for us it's more simplifying the process and doing what's more natural, or what for you is kind of in the middle. And I'll expand on that in just a second. But when we go to the store, which is much less than we used to, it's interesting because we're eating the food that's in our house too. Total another side channel rabbit hole that we're not going to go down. But all of the, ramen and boxes of goldfish and canned soups and the stuff that's processed and synthesized and refined and packaged and
radioactive.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. The produce section's pretty good, minus the eggplant, right? So that was bad timing on the eggplant story. But like, I walked through the produce section tonight and I'm like, my gosh, like this is amazing. I didn't have to worry about picking anything up. Now, we are in an area that is, not to be insensitive to other areas that are dealing with a much higher issue right now, like New York City, California, Illinois, all this crazy. Like, we're not in that area. We're in an area that is still very well on the low end of
feeling the scarcity.
Yeah.
We have less population density, higher agricultural areas nearby, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and not a lot of we're in Texas. Like, people grow their own food here. They butcher their own cows. There's farms everywhere. Like,
everyone has a ranch,
Yeah, not in my neighborhood. I got neighbors. But so not to be insensitive to that, but it's the H-E-Bs down here are massive, and all the cereal boxes and all the goldfish, like those are the aisles that are limited.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting perspective on the foods that people are going for in this time, when that's the opposite of really what you want to be doing. You want to be limiting that stuff. And I mean, it's a mindset shift, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And, it is funny that we talked about the eggplant, because then I asked Jen, like, okay.
I had nothing to do with the eggplant, Jen. Just so
no, it's just funny because then I immediately asked her, hey, were they out of apples and, bananas, carrots, potatoes? She said, no, they had all that other stuff. I just couldn't find eggplant. I said, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. So I guess it was just people don't like it, just like I don't, but
Yeah. I'm with you.
Still wanted it for the recipe. But yeah, I mean, I think those things flew off the shelf because when everyone felt scared, like, I need to stock up on non-perishable items,
things that last,
get all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And but if we look at today's eating habits, that is what we're pushed so much more. It's the cheapest. It's based on a lot of wheat and a lot of corn, a lot of things that are getting government help. They become artificially cheap, and then they're even cheaper to produce. They sit on the shelf for a long time. There's there's so many reasons why they're being pushed out in such a crazy quantity. And then it's no wonder that we're looking at our waistlines just expanding year by year, and the problem just seems to be getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it's interesting when if you look at the fast food menu, you can get a double cheeseburger for $1, but the salad's $8.
Yeah.
Wait, what? So this was something that I saw that I thought was really cool. And it has to do with refined processed carbohydrates, ultra processed foods, right? So this is the numbers are just a cool example of a thought like a nugget
Yeah,
here.
this is an analogy.
Yeah, that I found really cool. So if 2.4 million years of human evolution, put your beliefs aside, 2.4 million years, right, were compressed into 24 hours of a clock. So now every one of you that's ever looked up intermittent fasting or keto, you see the clock with the fork and the knife, right? That
On a
is
plate.
not
Yep.
on a plate. Never going to be our logo. We're not doing that. So human evolution compressed. Now you're visualizing the fork and the knife as the hour and the minute hand. And if you break it down, we have been eating meat for 24 hours.
The
right?
whole time. Yep.
The whole time. We've been eating wheat for 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
And
Okay.
we've been eating ultra processed refined foods for 4 seconds.
Wow.
4 seconds. So here's where my brain went to. You might laugh when I bring this up because I said I wasn't going to. Aristotle's golden mean. Okay. If you're not familiar with it, I wasn't either. I was on a training this week where a mentor of mine was talking about it. And it's this principle that operating kind of in the middle is really the recap. So if you're looking at a virtue, someone that has an ethical, moral virtue, right? If we look at something like courage, if you take it to the excess all the way on one side, that's going to turn into recklessness, like reckless abandonment, right? And if you're deficient in that, or you're on the other side, way on the other end of the spectrum, then you have cowardice.
Sure.
Right? So where is the virtue actually the best? Well, it's right in the middle. So if we look at this great analogy of this 24-hour clock, and we've been eating ultra processed foods for 4 seconds and meat for 24 hours, the problem is back in the 70s, right, when the subsidies started, which had an earnest beginning, it wanted to help bring food costs down, right?
Yeah, let's support the masses. We're growing exponentially.
Right, but then money got involved. And so if you look at that timeline, so what happened when we decrease the fatty foods and increase the subsidized foods or the grains, the things that were cheaper, right? You had to fill the void with something because people weren't going to be eating the lean meat as much as they should. So what happened?
Or the fresh vegetables.
They filled it with the cheaper,
corn,
readily
wheat,
available foods.
Things that could sit on the shelf, things that we could take, highly refine them, and then push out just product after product after product. Yeah. And we could use it in all these different areas, and then we could reuse it. And then we could feed it to the animals.
Yeah, right. To get them bigger, faster.
Yeah, ourselves included. Yeah. We feed corn to animals to fatten them up.
Right.
It's no wonder
produce more meat, right?
It happens to us too.
So we're not going to get into the discussion of where the golden mean applies in terms of research and philosophy, right? So let's just pick the middle of the road here. We've been eating ultra-processed food for 4 seconds. We've been eating meat, for 24 hours. So let's just apply a simple new golden rule of operating in the middle. Eat real food. If it has a bunch of ingredients and it can last through a nuclear explosion, don't take it home. There are periods where you should probably have a stock. Be safe, have a plan. If you've got kids, have food in the house. I get it. But as an individual, for me right now, my decision has changed and I want you to talk about your mindset shift for this, Tommy, because it really kind of blew my mind, where just eat balanced. Don't make it complicated. Don't worry about macros. Don't worry about calories, especially if you're just starting with fasting. Because remember, this is a fasting podcast. So if you're just starting with fasting, just keep it simple. Do a lean protein, do veggies, do a less refined carbohydrate. So like a sweet potato or a real potato or a brown rice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not trying to reverse diabetes, if you've got some blood sugar issues, that's going to cause insulin to spike more. But just keep it simple and operate right in that middle, because that's where you're going to get the best results.
Yeah, some lower glycemic fruit. There's lots of good choices there.
Like, you don't need to eat bread with the eggplant parmesan.
No. I mean, and
or you don't need to eat the eggplant parmesan. Sorry, Jen.
True. That's not actually what she made this time.
Oh, okay.
Although, I'm sure she wouldn't mind eggplant parmesan every now and then. But the last time she had it, she said it tasted, I don't know, too much parmesan, not enough eggplant.
Gotcha.
So, but as far as mind shift goes, what we were talking about earlier, I remember when I think we've talked just a little bit about sugar addiction in the past, and I still remember where I was standing when I realized, wow, I've literally had like 30 years of sugar addiction. That was, started conditioning at a young age, and then it just felt natural, and that's what continued to happen. But at some point later, a couple years later, was when I realized it really is these ultra processed carbs that are so appealing. They're so cheap. They're so readily available. They're just ubiquitous. They serve them everywhere. And in order to kind of shift the mindset about them, that took just a little bit of deliberate work where I had to make a conscious decision. And I said, I don't like these. I crave them still, but I don't like them, and I don't want them. I don't want them to rule my food choices. Let me make a deliberate effort to start seeing them and visualizing them, and say, yeah, I'm looking at those. Those are a villainous kind of food. If we're going to frame it like a superhero, those are the villain here. Those are what's causing the insulin to spike. Those are what's causing me to retain the weight and not be able to drop anything despite my high exercise routines, my caloric deficits, my diligent calorie counting. These are keeping my insulin levels up. I'm so insulin resistant, I can't drop this weight. So I started, every time we would go out, I would take a look at everyone's plate. I would look at them, and I would remind myself, yeah, I don't want that. I would see some pizza and I would say, that's not good. That's the problem. That's been the problem for years. And I don't always shy away from these foods, but I don't crave them like I used to, because I immediately think that those aren't good for me. They were killing me for a long time.
So instead of thinking of, wow, I can't wait to indulge in this, because for me it's pizza and
Sure.
IPA.
I love pizza.
Can't wait to indulge in a pizza and some IPA, right? Mm-hmm. That's my like date night, cheat night. Like, that's what I would love to do. I don't like those terms, but that's what I want, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So instead of thinking, man, I can't wait to indulge this, I deserve it, it's, wait a minute, this isn't good for me and I know it.
Yeah.
Like let's operate in the middle, right? The golden
Mm-hmm.
mean. Let's not operate in the ultra processed refined foods all the time, which would be recklessness. Or let's not operate in the world of, scarcity and super restrictiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But let's operate in the middle and just use some common sense and have that mindset shift that I know what this does to my blood chemistry and my physiology and my insulin. What's my end goal? Well, it's to reverse diabetes. It's to lose 40 pounds. It's whatever it is. And if it's just to lose weight, that's why this doesn't work. It's got to be something greater than that. And for you, you've been able to turn it into like almost like the villain. Like, all right, yeah. It's not that you don't ever eat it, but now when you see it, your mind goes bad, rather than, oh, I can't wait to indulge and then have to work it off later.
Right. It's conditioning yourself to immediately think, no, that's bad. And if
and
that's
you can
my favorite,
have it.
Yeah, if it's my favorite food in the world, I know I'm going to have it now and then, and that's okay. And I plan for that. I just say, but that immediate condition response that I've flipped over time means I don't have it as much. I'm not craving it. It doesn't release as much dopamine when I think about it or when I have it. So I'm
Right.
not going to just be yearning for it the next time, which, these are kind of extreme terms, but, if you've dealt with food addiction, or, you have more than a few pounds to lose, or more than, just a little bit of blood chemistry that's off that you're trying to reverse, you probably know what I'm talking about.
100%. 100%. Um, I want to shift because for me, that kind of wraps it up in a little bow where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, got it. So the trigger, the cue, and if you want some more insight into the habits, the power of habit was a huge game changer for me. The book, The Power of Habit,
Mm-hmm.
it's just amazing how our habits govern our decisions and we don't even realize it. Like you can drive home from the office one day and then get home and be like, huh, how did I just looked behind me. I just realized this is an audio medium. And I
Right.
literally paused and looked behind me. Like you
Yeah.
guys can't
No,
see
he
that.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
No, I
did. Thank
saw
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like that was terrible. So you like just wait, hold on, stop. I got it. So really, really good perspective.
Yeah. Autopilot it's a big thing.
Yeah.
So many of our decisions are on autopilot.
Yeah. It's not a conscious decision. So
Mm-hmm.
that rewiring, that's where the mastery comes into play. So just really cool stuff. So I want to talk about our new baby, and that's an odd way to announce this. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Nope,
Okay.
nope. Sorry, Megan. Nope, no weird announcements. Um, the new Fast Start Guide and the new Fast Start Guide mini masterclass video series, like whoa, like I keep logging in and looking at it and just being like, man, okay, we put this together. You built it, like physically built it, and now we can log in. And when you get the Fast Start Guide, you don't just get a piece of paper that has a lot of powerful action steps on it,
Mm-hmm.
but you now get a deep dive of video training where it's like, hey, this is why step one is step one,
Yeah.
right? This is why step two is step two. This is why step three, this is what you should do. And then at the end, which is the coolest part, is there's a quiz that gives us some insight into what you got out of the course, but also kind of sums it up. Would that be a good way to explain it?
Yeah, it does. And the quiz is also going to help us tweak the next step. So I don't want to give away anything yet for the next step, but you guys getting the Fast Start Guide, going through the masterclass, I think you're going to get a lot out of it. We put a lot of thought into it. We took a lot of feedback over the last 3 months for everyone. We've had a few hundred people download the Fast Start Guide, and we've taken all the feedback and put it into the deep dive mini masterclass. So I think you guys are going to like it a lot. And we put the quiz in there so we could get a good pulse for what's really going to help you guys take this thing to the next level. Because we're talking about pandemic times. We're talking about some, you might want to call it off-topic stuff. If you say, well, like you've said, this is a fasting podcast.
Fasting for life. Yeah.
Right? It's like you had to remind yourself and everyone, this is a fasting podcast. But that's the beauty of the simplicity, the control, and what we're doing. Because if we were talking about this a year ago, you and I would have completely different perspectives, priorities, a whole different outlook on what's
Right.
happening. And so the point is that we're here thinking this way because of what fasting has done for us.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is like the clarity for me is in the real relevancy and the rawness of it. So it's real to us because it's worked so well. It's raw to us because of the transformation it's given us and the things we're seeing in people. And it's relevant because it's so dang actionable right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. So this is a fasting podcast. That's the last time I'll say it. Joke's probably getting old. Just shut the fridge. You're not hungry. You're bored. But so what we want you to do this time is, if you've got the Fast Start Guide back in the day, we've summarized it. We've streamlined it. We've put a lot of work into it. It's now 6 succinct steps with video support. It's free, by the way. Log back in, if get it, sign up for the class. Tommy, I don't know if that's how it works, so just correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Cool.
You're good.
Go back in and sign up. You'll get it. And then really our action step is just continue to look at this through a different lens. So take the red pill, step back for a second, and look at everything that's going around you. Be like, okay, do I want that? Well, no, not really. Okay, what can I do right now in this moment to control it? Well, I can make a better decision. Great. There you go. You just fixed it. It's not that complicated, right? You don't need an app. You don't need a scale. You don't need a coach, right? At this moment, you just right now, just make the decision and you're good to go. So my next thing would be, while we're going through this and everybody's living on Zoom, which I wish I would have, one, been in the stock market because I don't do that, but two, saw that coming. Like Zoom is skyrocketing because everybody's on Zoom. Everybody's on FaceTime.
Right.
Phone a friend, reach out and say, hey, how you doing? What can I do for you? Well, I'm doing this, this, and this. Okay, well, this is what I'm doing, right? You don't have to bash them over the head with it. First rule of fasting is don't talk about fasting. But bring someone with you. Bring up that level of leadership. Right now, there are people that don't realize they need it. So if you can control that one decision, then you can help other people too.
Yeah, like go into your phone, text a friend or a distant family member, someone you haven't talked to in a while. See if there's something you could do for them, whether it's personally, professionally. Just reach out to somebody and put something good out there. And I think a lot of people are really bringing up the morale and the leadership and the overall feeling in the room by doing little things like that wherever we can.
And I want to say this too on the end of it. Like, we love and appreciate every one of you guys, the listeners, the people giving us feedback, the people that's been in our challenge, people asking questions, the people we're coaching right now. We didn't know what this is going to turn into, and I still don't. I have a vision of what it can be. 50% of the population that needs what we teach. And it's not us, it's fasting. It's a tried and true old school principle that's been around forever, but it's
old as time.
Yeah, it's so much more applicable now because of the fact that we've been inundated with these ultra processed, refined, insulin spiking foods and convenience and all of these different marketing strategies from food companies. Like, it's just come to a point where this applies so much more now because of the situation with the statistics of where people are in terms of being overweight and obese and the comorbidities and the other health issues that comes along with that. It's simply a thank you to everyone that's been with us up until this point. And we love and appreciate each one of you. And we don't have sponsors, right? We just do this on Tuesday nights because we love it.
Yeah.
And we got some cool stuff coming, and we're having a lot of fun with it. But we'd appreciate if you rate and subscribe, give us a review, give us some feedback, ask some questions, and we'll talk about them on the next episode. So again, just really appreciate every one of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's the second time that there's been just a perfect little bow on it. So why don't we actually wrap it up this time?
Tell me to stop talking. I like what you've done here, sir.
Absolutely.
It's been a blast, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. See you next time. Bye. So you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.